If you haven't seen part 1, go back and watch it first. This won't make sense without it. For everyone else, let's pick up exactly where we left off. 3 weeks after Rachel Voss vanished from a house locked from the inside, someone withdrew money from her bank account 400 miles away. The security footage showed a hooded figure who turned to the camera at the last second and smiled. That single detail changed everything about how investigators were looking at this case. Detective Mara Chen was assigned to follow the money. The withdrawal came from a small town called Ashford Creek, at an ATM outside a gas station 2 blocks from a motel called the Roadside Inn. When Chen pulled the motel's check-in records from that same night, one name stood out immediately. A woman had checked in under the name Elena Voss. Same last name as Rachel. No one in Elm Hollow had ever heard of an Elena. Chen tracked down the motel bartender, a man named Tommy, who remembered the woman clearly. He said she'd come in alone, ordered a drink, and barely spoke. When he called her Rachel by mistake, thinking he recognized her from somewhere, she looked at him like he'd said a word in a language she didn't understand. She told him her name was Eleanor. He said it wasn't just that she corrected him. It was that she seemed genuinely confused, like the name Rachel meant nothing to her at all. Back in Elm Hollow, the wooden box pulled from the lake was still unexplained. The old photographs inside were sent to a genealogist, along with a sample from the one item in Rachel's house that hadn't been touched, a hairbrush, still holding a few strands of hair. The results took 2 weeks. When they came back, they raised more questions than they answered. The DNA was a near-perfect match to someone in the photographs. Not an exact one, a twin. Rachel had been adopted as an infant. It was never mentioned in town, never brought up by a parent, who had passed away years earlier. But hospital records from the year she was born showed something strange. 2 baby girls delivered on the same day, to the same birth mother, at a hospital, 3 hours from Elm Hollow. One had been kept. One had been given up. Chen requested Rachel's phone records again, this time looking further back than the night she disappeared. Months earlier, Rachel had ordered one of those at-home DNA testing kits. The results had come back 6 weeks before she vanished. She never told anyone. Not Denise. Not a single friend in town. She had simply gone quiet and started researching a woman named Eleanor Cross, who lived 400 miles away in Ashford Creek. It started to look less like a disappearance and more like Rachel had left on purpose. But that still didn't explain the locked house. It didn't explain the tea still warm on the counter, or the light in the boathouse at midnight, or why she would leave everything behind, her phone, her wallet, her keys, without a word to anyone. Chen drove to Ashford Creek herself. The motel clerk confirmed Elena Cross had checked out 3 days after that ATM withdrawal and never came back. No forwarding address, no trail. But there was one more thing. Buried in the motel's old guest ledger, in the same shaky handwriting as the Elena Voss signature, was a phone number. Chen dialed it, standing in the motel parking lot. It rang twice, and a woman answered. Her voice was calm, careful, like she'd been waiting for this call for weeks. She said, "You found the box, didn't you?" Then the line went dead. What was in that call? Who is Elena, really? And why did Rachel disappear the way she did? Locked door, warm tea, and all. We're answering every one of these questions and closing out this story for good in part 3. Subscribe so you don't miss the ending. In the small lakeside town of Elm Hollow, Population 4,200. Nothing interesting had happened in years. That changed on the morning of October 4th, when Rachel Voss didn't show up for her shift at the diner she'd worked at for 6 years. She'd never missed a day. Not once. Her co-worker, Denise, tried calling. No answer. She drove to the house, a modest lake cabin Rachel had lived in alone since her divorce 2 years earlier, and found the front door locked, the porch light still on from the night before, and Rachel's car sitting untouched in the driveway. Inside, everything looked normal. Almost too normal. A half-drunk cup of tea sat on the kitchen counter, still faintly warm when police arrived an hour later. Her phone was on the charger. Her purse, with her wallet and keys, sat by the door. Nothing was missing. Nothing was broken. Her shoes were still by the door. Her coat still on the hook. It looked as though she had simply stepped outside for a moment and never came back. But Rachel was gone. Police searched the house, top to bottom. Every window was locked from the inside. The back door, the one that led down to the lake, was bolted with a chain lock, the kind you can only fasten from inside the house. There was no sign of a struggle anywhere, no overturned furniture, no forced exit, nothing dragged or broken, which left investigators with an impossible question. If every entrance was sealed from within, how did Rachel Voss leave her own home? Or, and this is the theory that started circulating fast in Elm Hollow, did she leave at all? The first real lead came from her neighbour, an older man named Walt, who lived 2 houses down. Walt told police that around 11:40 p.m, he'd seen a light go on in Rachel's boathouse, a small structure at the edge of her property, right on the water. He said he almost went down to check on her, but the light went out a few minutes later, and he simply assumed she'd gone down to grab something. Here's the problem. Rachel didn't own a boat. The boathouse had been empty for years, ever since the divorce. Her ex-husband had taken the boat with him when he left. So what was she doing down there, alone, at midnight? And who, or what, turned that light off? Divers searched the lake for 3 days. They found nothing. No body. No signs of struggle in the water. Nothing to suggest she'd drowned or been dumped. The case seemed to be going nowhere, and Elm Hollow began to whisper theories of its own. But on the 3rd day, one diver found something strange near the dock, half buried in silt. A small wooden box, waterlogged but fully intact. Inside it were photographs. Old ones, decades old, of people no one in Elm Hollow recognized. And a single key that didn't match any lock in Rachel's house, or anywhere else investigators could find. Detectives ran it through every database they had access to, checked it against every lock in Rachel's known life, and came up with nothing. To this day, no one knows what that key opens. 3 weeks after Rachel disappeared, something happened that changed the entire direction of the case. Someone made a withdrawal from her bank account. 400 miles away, in a town she had no known connection to, no family, no friends, nothing that would explain why her card ended up there. The security footage from that ATM is grainy, low resolution, barely usable. A hooded figure, face never fully visible, moving quickly, deliberately, like someone who knew exactly where the cameras were. But in the last frame before they walk off screen, they turn, just slightly, toward the camera, and for half a second, you can see it clearly. They're smiling. What happened in that boathouse at midnight? Who has Rachel's bank card? And how did they get it? And what does that key unlock? We're covering all of it. The withdrawal, the box, and the one witness who says they saw Rachel walking through town after she supposedly vanished in part 2. Subscribe so you don't miss it.